Dave Jones here again. More on this theory stuff now. We're going to move on to the next section, which is extending the chords, major 7 chords, minor 7 chords, and dominant 7 chords, which I'll come on to in a minute. The major 7 chord is another extension of the major chord. If you remember back to the last lesson we had in a C major chord, from the C major scale we take the root C, miss the second, take the third E, miss the fourth F, take the fifth G. Now what we're going to do to make it a seventh is miss the sixth A and add the seventh B. So the spelling, taken away from the major scale spelling of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we've got 1, 3, 5, 7. And major 7 chords, to me, they sound like bright blue sunshiny day chords. Doesn't matter what they sound like to you, as long as you can recognise them eventually. And you can do that for any of the major scales we looked at. If you took G major, you take the G, E, miss the C, take the D, miss the E, take the F sharp, and you'd have a G major 7 chord. So nice sunny blue sky chord. So the major 7 chord is spelt 1, 3, 5, 7. So you're literally missing every other note from the scale, and that will give you a major 7 chord. The minor 7 chord is spelt from can be spelt from the natural minor scale, and it's the same thing as before when we took the for the minor triad. We took the root, the flat third, and the fifth. If you remember the spelling of a natural minor scale, we had the 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and the octave the 8th. And what we do there to make the minor 7 chord is we take the notes from the natural minor scale, missing one each time. So we've got 1, flat 3, 5, and the flat 7, remembering that the minor's got a flat 7. So the spelling, it's called, of a minor 7 chord is 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, and that's the spelling of the chord. And they have the same sort of sad sound, but I think they sound slightly more soulful, minor 7 chords. So if you took the E minor, you'd take the E, the G, the B, and the D, and you'd get an E minor 7 chord. And you can do that for all the scales that we've learnt so far. I'm sticking to these scales at the moment so as you can follow and understand how the chords are made up. We'll be going into how to harmonise the major scale in the next lesson. There is one other type of chord. It's called a dominant 7 chord. So the major 7 chord, just to recap quickly, the major 7 chord is built from the major scale, taking the 1, 3, 5, 7. The minor 7 chord is built from the minor scale. In this case, while we're learning how to just build them, it's taking the 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. And when you see a major 7 chord written in a chord sequence, it's abbreviated to MAJ7. So if you're reading a chord, if you're doing any guitar exams, or if you've got a chord book indoors and you're learning some songs and you see the chord C MAJ7, that's a major 7 chord. The minor 7 chord, like the minor, is abbreviated with a little m. So it goes AM for A minor. There's a 7 after it for a minor 7, so it goes AM7, A minor 7. If you're playing from a chord chart. The dominant 7 chord just has a 7 after it. So anything that's got G7 or D7 is what's called a dominant 7 chord. Because as well as building chords from the root note of a scale, as in C major 7, C major scale, building C major 7, the dominant 7 chord, you can build chords from any degree of the scale, which I'll be doing in the next lesson, harmonising the major scale. But you can build, the dominant 7 chord is built on the 5th degree of the major scale. So in C major, for example, the dominant 7 chord is built, if you count up on your fingers, C, D, E, F, G. It's built on the 5th degree, on the G chord. And in a minor scale, in a natural minor scale, it's built on the 7th degree. So if you count on your fingers, say we're doing A natural minor, you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7th degree. And as we spoke about before, C major, its relative minor is A natural minor. And if you count up from, as we spoke about before as well, it's got the same notes in as A natural minor has got the same notes in as C major. That's why it's called a relative minor. But it sounds different if you play it from root note to root note. If you build the chord of the 5th degree of the C major scale, you'll end up with a G7 chord. Equally, if you build the chord on the 7th degree of the A natural minor scale, you'll end up with a G7 chord. So the dominant 7 chord of the two particular scales we're talking about at the moment, C major and A natural minor, is G7. So the G7, if we take it from the C major scale at the moment, the G7 chord, the dominant 7 chord, is built on the 5th degree. So the 5th degree becomes the 1. So the G is the 1. Then we take the 3rd degree, which is the B. This is from the G. Missing 1 from the G, so we're playing the G, we're missing the A, we're taking the B, we're missing the C, taking the D, and then we're missing the E and taking the F. Now, if you remember back to your G major scale, the G major scale had an F sharp in it, but the G dominant 7 has got the root, 3rd, 5th, and the 7th is flattened. If it was a G major 7 chord, it will have an F sharp in it because it comes from the parent major scale of G. But we're building this chord from the 5 of C, and there isn't a sharp in C. So we're taking the 5th, sorry, but we're making it the 1st, G. Then we're missing a note, we're taking the B. This is from the C major scale. Then we're missing a note, we're taking the D. Then we're missing a note, we're taking the F. So the 7th degree on the G is what's called a flattened 7th, because a 7th would be F sharp. 7 notes from G would be F sharp. But 7 notes, because there's no F sharp in C, we've got an F. And that gives us what's called a dominant 7 arpeggio and a dominant 7 chord, which sound very sort of bluesy. A lot of blues is based around dominant 7 chords, and also it gives it a sort of a restless feel. It kind of needs to go somewhere. It sort of needs to, and the reason it's called a dominant chord is because in the key of C, for example, G7 is the next most important chord. It forms what's called a perfect cadence and pulls you back to the C chord. You'll find that a lot in different music, that the chord 5, in this case G in C, pulls you back to the root chord C, the parent key. And equally the dominant 7 chord, if it was a G7 in this case, if it was built on the A natural minor scale, it would be built on the 7th degree of the A natural minor scale. So the G will become the G would become the 1. Then we'd miss the next note A, take the B, miss the next note, take the D, miss the next note, take the F. And can be quite confusing at the moment, but as the lessons progress and you'll learn more about harmonising the major scale, these sort of things fall into place. But it's quite important that you print the sheet off, and you'll get more from this lesson by looking at the sheet. So just to recap, a major 7 chord is built from the root, 3rd, 5th, 7th of the major scale. A minor 7 chord is built from the root, flat 3rd, 5th, flat 7, so that's the spelling of a minor 7 chord. And a dominant 7 chord can be built from the 5th degree of a major scale or the 7th degree of a natural minor scale. And the spelling is root, 3rd, 5th, the same as a major, but a flat 7 like the minor. So it's got root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7. And that's the arpeggio. It's handy to learn these arpeggios. Again, they're up on the site. So I hope you're getting this so far. And I'll move on to harmonising the major scale, and then everything will start to become more clear. So I'll see you again soon.